Okay, so this is my second video recording attempt. The first one was for a player named Michael, and I actually didn't do very well. So I'm going to try to make an attempt where I do better for Terry. These are my private lead chess studies right here. So anytime that I do an analysis, I'm going to probably try to fill it up this way. So the first one was for Mike, and hopefully he likes the analysis that I put out, and that he requests to get another one done, because I'm going to try to get better at this the more I do. So I'm going to do one for Terry. The only thing that I'm not sure that I like is the fact that the move times are here, but I'm going to try to get around that to see if I like it. From the looks of it, this was a 10-minute game, which I actually like. I like the fact that it says 10-minute game too. So I might like the move time stamping, especially when you go forward. It'll say it right here as a not comment. So if I want to delete it, I can just delete it. I'm not worried about all that. Let's see. So we're gonna start. Terry here was black. That's what my setup is going to be. Is I actually know who's black this time, so I can comment. The last time, a lot of the things took a lot of turn for the worse because I wasn't sure what color Mike was, and it's not Mike's fault, it's my fault, because I think I copied his PGN incorrectly so that I couldn't figure out which color he was, and I was a little bit too lazy to ask him what color he was. So I believe this is a game from chess.com, and I believe both players are about the 1400 level. This is almost perfect because 1400, you're starting to really get an idea as to what how to develop and how tactics work and strategy. So we're going to go over this game. We're going to see if we can pinpoint where Terry may have went wrong. What I would prefer, and this is not required, is if you want to send in a game, feel free to edit it in, like, let's say ChessBase or Lichess. I can show you how to do that if you'd like. Put in some comments as to your thoughts, because if I know your thought process while you play the game, it makes it a lot easier to correct that thought process. Okay, so he's black. He played d5, which is good. All right. The first thing I would like to notice is that he played knight c6. In the last video, I explained that the databases might be different from ChessBase to Lichess, so I'm not going to do that now. I'm hoping that maybe if you look at data or that video, you'll see it in the video. In this, knight c6 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 6 down, and there's only 48 games. And those games, of those 48 games, it's about an equal, right? So it's playable. The thing that I don't like about knight c6 is that in a London system, a lot of the times you want to play c5 in order to make attempts to disrupt the pawn structure. And if you play c5 at some point, then you follow up with knight c6, and the common strategy is, if you're going to play c5 at some point, one of the best moves is to play c5 on move 2 or move 3. So the common move order might be knight f6 followed by e3 and then c5. So you're looking at knight f6, e3, and c5. So either c5 on move 2 or knight f6 and then c5. You could also play the other moves. They're fine. A lot of the times what you want to do is, if you're not going to try to play c5, you might want to play g6 and bishop to g7. But even then, you still might want to play c5. So when it comes down to it, probably the stiffest defense to the London system is to try to challenge the center as quickly as possible. So knight c6, not a bad move, but I would seriously consider playing c5 against this, especially if you don't really know openings that well, and you want an idea as to how to attack it. So let me give you a quick rundown real quick. So bishop f4, let's say c5, e3, let's say knight c6. Now there's a common, when you play the c5 version of the London system, the commonality that you want to focus on is that you do want to play knight f6, but you want to wait until they play knight f3. So let's say c6, right? Actually, you can play it now, but it won't really hurt you to play knight f6. But let's say they play knight f3 now. Knight f6, c6. Okay. The most common version of trying to get equality in this particular position is to play queen to b6. Okay? And then you can actually do development tricks to maintain the equality. So if you play queen to b6 and they play queen to b3, the most common move is c4. And then if they capture, then you're developing your rook. If they move the queen back, then you can make the development trick now, which is bishop f5. Okay? They can't capture because the queen can capture on b2, and you're winning the rook for the bishop. Okay? So then the queen would usually go to c1 like this, and then you don't have to know past this move what to do specifically, but if you wanted to, let's say, perfect the ideas behind what to do after this, then what I would suggest is there's literally a lot of games right now that's, if you look at this database here, there's literally over, let's say, 400 games right here on the first 3 moves. You can look at them and decide what you like better, because at this point in the game, there's some pretty darn good stats for every move on here, and especially the first 3. So even knight h5 is good, but I think I usually think about playing things like e6. But if you look at the statistics, they're technically about equal. I mean, there's really not much difference between them. Being the fact that that there's less of a win ratio for white for knight e5, and all of it goes to a draw for knight h5, and then 35%, when it comes to 14% versus 35%, that's huge. So when you consider things like knight h5, even with 100 games under your belt, considering that, just looking at the games, especially if the average player is above 2200. Okay? Alright, so I usually follow up with e6 because I don't really study openings past like move 8 or 10. So I usually play e6. I get good games. I think I win more than I lose. So that's the deal on that. The thing that you want to make sure that you do realize is that this trick works as long as this knight is on b1 and all of the pieces are erased from this file, right? So there was one time where somebody tried to do the same thing to me once, and they did this move order, and then they did this. Okay, so while this is not a bad move, they've confused the actual move order. So I went queen to b3 here, right? They went c5 and I went queen to c2. And then remember what I said, you need this whole bottom row here cleared in order to do this trick. Well, he didn't move the knight. He just played here and didn't move the knight. So this disconnected the rook from this file, and I just took the bishop. And the reason why I can take the bishop is because if he takes here, then this is mate. And he realized that and did something different. I forget exactly what he played. I think he played knight c6, and then I played knight f3, and then he did something like e5. So this game here, to be quite honest, this game here I didn't win, probably because I was so excited that I was getting a good game against a 2000 player, because at the time my rating I think was 1950 and his rating was like 2010 or something like that, and I was getting like a literal winning game from the opening against maybe a new expert, and he was a little agitated with himself, and you know, I gave him too many opportunities, and he didn't win, but he did manage to get me into a perpetual check draw. And the game showed up in a book by Cyrus Lakdawala. And if you wanted to buy that book to check it out, not even just to check me out, but to check out the whole book, because it's a good book. It's called Winning Ugly. So you could look it up. I can put the link in the description. It's not that big a deal. But yeah, the game does show up. I was winning pretty much the whole game, and then within the last 5 or 6 moves, I blunder into a drawn position, and it was a forced drawn position. So the game was probably about 25 moves, and within that 5 or 6 moves of the last 5 or 6 moves, I made a blunder and got into a drawn position. So from here to about move 20, I was winning, and all I needed to do was proper development, and I didn't do that. So I'm not going to actually go over the game. I just showed you what the beginning parts of the game are so that you can see. Let's see. Here? Okay. So white is actually doing really good on the development of his pieces. Black is doing good based on what he did. So like, while knight c6 is a little bit awkward, he's actually doing very well considering the fact that he did a little bit awkward. Okay, I'm not going to say that he's doing bad, because he's not. Black is doing fine. He's developing. The next thing that probably needs to be done is to play e6, bishop d6, and then castle, and then connect the rooks. That's really all that he really needs to understand that he needs to do, is those things. Okay, so this is probably the first mistake, is knight e4. And as you notice, it's not even in the database. If you go back, there's like 3 moves that are here. I would actually consider knight h5 first. Well, maybe not knight h5. I don't know. Yeah. What I would actually consider first is e6, because of the fact that it's more principled. Knight h5, the reason I don't really like knight h5 is because, you know, you're just chasing the bishop around. He can go here and here and here, and you're chasing the bishop around. There's tricks that white can do to get out of getting the bishop taken. If you played, let's say, h6 first, and then they went like bishop e2, knight h5, then you've got a reason to actually do that. So I like to play e6 first to try to see what he wants to do, and then worry about moves like knight h5. But yeah, knight e4 is probably the first mistake, because he doesn't have to take it really, and he can start attacking the center and doing things to improve his development while you're still lagging in development. And that's it's not really, let's do it this way. Knight e4 is not really like a mistake, but it's an inaccuracy. And you're going to find out that there's a huge difference between inaccuracy, mistake, and blunder. Blunder, you're usually like losing the game, you're losing a piece. In a computer's mind, if you do a blunder and it's not doing one of those 2 things, then a blunder to a computer is something where you did something that moved the evaluation 4.5 points or higher. So anything above 4.5 points, or maybe even 4 points, is considered a blunder to a computer. So this would be considered an inaccuracy in my mind, and it's not necessary to do this yet. So you kind of want to go like this, maybe consider bishop to d6, and then knight e4 later. Okay, knight e4 is a good move, but you don't really have to do it until like there's a threat of let's say e4, and you don't want e4 played. Like let's say they have a bishop on d3 castled, and then the rook goes to e1. Okay, in that case you might want to stop e4. But in some cases, if they haven't played rook e1 and they're threatening to play e4, you may not even want to stop it. You might want to open the center because, I don't know, let's say, for example, let's say you took the bishop here for the knight. Okay, and you have a bishop's advantage. If you're castled and you're fully developed, then you don't want to stop e4, or you want to open the position as wide as you can. So you want to play moves that promote them opening the position, while at the same time you're promoting moves for you to open the position. So so from here, I would have considered e6 first, knight h5 second. I probably wouldn't have thought about a6 really. A6 is probably something to stop bishop to b5, because if they play bishop to b5, they could try to chase away your bishop this way, right? And then when the bishop to is on b5, then they can play knight e4, and they at the very least get the bishop pair, and that's very important. Okay, so this is trading. There's a let me do this. What was the link I was going to put in? I don't remember, but oh, no, it's not breaking stereotypes. It's the most common mistakes. Let's do yeah, I believe it's this one here. So so I'll put it in the description. All right, I'll put it in the description so that you can follow it, or you can actually search it yourself. It's not a big deal. What this does is it gives you an idea as to some of the most common mistakes in chess, and one of them is capturing. And one of the ideas that it tries to portray is that capturing is a mistake, and you kind of have to think about that first. So when you go back here, if your goal was, when you play knight e4, to capture here, that's a mistake. Okay, and his whole mantra when he's saying this to take as a mistake thing, and he illustrates it very well. He's saying that that all captures, if they don't benefit you, it's always a mistake to capture. Okay, you need to consider all your captures as, does it benefit me, or does it benefit my opponent, or does it do nothing? So if it does nothing or benefits your opponent, it is 100% a mistake. Okay, when you're considering capturing and it doesn't do anything for your opponent but it benefits you, then you do it. And this is a skill that you hone in as you go, as you get better and better. But really, it does nothing to capture in order. And you might argue that when you take the pawn here and the queen takes, you can capture on f3 and it doubles pawns, but that's not the case. Okay, that's not the case at all. You've actually helped white by capturing, because one, you're giving away the bishop pair, you thinking that you're getting something out of it by capturing and damaging the pawn structure, but you're not. You're actually helping, because having the pawn on f3 enhances the fact that you can play e4, right? And white, having the bishop pair, he wants to open the position so that he can attack you. Okay, so keep that in mind. This here, just the simple fact that you know that he's going to capture with the queen, right? and then you're going to capture on f3, and this was your whole plan in doing knight e4 in the first place, then this is a mistake. Okay, so with that being said, g takes f3. I wonder if he knows this. I don't know, because a lot of the times when I say something and I'm analyzing a game and you find out when they go through this, sometimes the person that's on the side that's doing good doesn't realize what good it is that they're getting either. Okay, so you might have lost on time, you might have had a better position, but in this particular case, right, white, no matter what the rating is, if they're trying to learn chess, they should know right now that they have a huge advantage with having the opportunity to break in the center and have a bishop. Bishop h3 is unnecessary unless you're actually going to do something about it. So he's actually not doing so well playing bishop h3, because technically you can block e6. So castle queenside is okay because he wants to try to castle, and then you played here, but then he played a3, and that's unnecessary too because there's no attack there right now. And when he played a3, your queen is on here, right? So there's no real attack here, but you can try to do things like play here, here, and here. So now you're getting things where you can start building up an attack. So a3 is a positional blunder because he castled queenside and then he's weakening the pawns on that side. So that's why that's a positional blunder. In retrospect, though, from this move, when you play g6, which is an okay move, what he should have done is castled queenside. So castle, bishop to g7, bishop, let's say bishop to b5, right? And the reason why is because if he goes like this, right, then what you might do is you might go like this, and then like this, and like this, and he's just weakened his queenside position. But I don't know if that's all that great. So maybe not bishop to b5, but bishop to d3. Okay, that way he has to work towards pushing these pawns, but he might want to castle queenside. The reason I say bishop to b5 is if he's going to castle queenside. So you don't want to play bishop to b5 unless he does. So we're going to promote this, okay, and then let's see. So from here, if he plays e6, because that's probably part of the plan, which is why bishop a3, which is why bishop a3 is not good, because e6 is more than likely part of your plan anyway. And then you're going to want to play here, then you want to castle, or castle, whatever. So playing bishop a3 is a wasted move, and then playing a3 just weakens the queen side so that you can attack it. Okay, so from this point, okay, if it's his turn, now he should try to open the center. So e5, because he's got his rooks connected, or e4. He's got his rooks connected, and he wants to open the position. And this is basically one of the perfect opportunities to open the position, because he's fully developed, ready to attack you, and you still have 2 moves in order to castle. Okay, and he wants to. Well, you can castle this way, but if you castle this way, then he's got an automatic attack this way, right? So you probably want to play, I don't know, queen to d7, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, rook check, knight e7, and then if he tries to double up, you can castle. And then while you did things to try to maintain safety, you probably have somewhat equality. All right, so he still has the advantage, but you're maintaining. And this is probably the best that he should have probably tried to do. When you castle queenside and he's got these files open, he doesn't really need to play h4, h5 because you're not castled. You're not castled. He wants to more focus in the center. Okay, so Right. So from this point, he has no attack, and in order for him to attack your position, he has to move this bishop back, play h4, h5, and then try to attack you that way if you castle kingside. So you want to castle kingside now, and then you want to do things like play g4, b4, or b5, a5, and b4, and just crack open this part here. And that's what your plan should have been. It looks like you didn't. It looks like you castled kingside for whatever reason. I don't know why. He plays e4, which is correct. King to b8. King b8 is actually pretty good. I think that right now you're doing well, except for he still maintains that little advantage right now. And the only reason that he maintains that advantage is because you didn't play castle kingside and then just throw the pawns down his throat. Otherwise, I think you would have had at least compensation and possibly chances to win. So, e takes, rook takes, which actually, rook takes is probably the best. Knight h5. I like knight h5 because it tries to highlight the holes that are missing from this bishop h3 move and the fact that this pawn has moved. So I like knight h5. You're actually doing really well after the fact that he has messed up a lot of his advantages, and now you're doing better than he is now, especially considering he has to take care of this threat of the fork. Does he do that? Bishop to g5? I don't know if I would have done that. So he plays bishop to g5. I think he loses a piece now. No, maybe he doesn't. But I don't like the bishop to g5 thing. I probably would have preferred king to b1. Maybe queen to d6, bishop f4, and then here, maybe. I don't like this. But the only reason that f6 doesn't win a piece, well, maybe it does win a piece. Yeah, I think it might actually win a piece. Let's see on the computer. It might win a piece. Okay, so knight b3. King c2, knight takes d2, bishop takes e7, knight takes f3. Oh, so yours is right. But what about this one? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So, according to the computer, yours is actually better than, it's not better than mine, but it's equal. And I did forget about that. Okay, so knight here, bishop, king there, knight takes, bishop takes, knight f3, knight there. Okay, that's incorrect here because he can take here. What you wanted to do was take here with check, and then when he recaptures this way, you can move the bishop, and you're at least exchange up. So that's where your mistake was here. Is you took the wrong rook. So when you're back here, you want one of these rooks, but you don't want him to take a rook back. So capturing this way would be better. So knight takes g1, bishop takes d5, e takes d5, Rook takes G1. Rook E8. Yeah, see, so you have the advantage here, but from the looks of it, this is about where you started getting into the big time troubles, because you had 7 minutes versus 3 minutes. So where did you have 3 minutes at? Here? 5 minutes? So you took a few minutes to decide on playing knight h5, which is probably good. And then you took a couple of minutes to decide knight b3, which is good. And then king to c2. And then you took a few minutes to decide to take knight takes d2, which is better than what I did, because I didn't take too much time to consider what the difference is between f6. Between f6 and knight takes d2. Which I should have, but I'm actually analyzing this, so I don't have to be as perfect as I need to be in order to do this. But yeah, I don't like bishop g5. It seems so poorly played at this point. And while yeah, you need to focus on getting a little bit faster, you know, that's not a big deal. I mean, you didn't really do that bad, except for there was kind of a couple of mistakes. So like the capturing here is a mistake. This bishop h3 for your opponent is a mistake. Queen e7 is great. Castle queenside. You know, it's not, mostly what you're doing is when you're playing, you're doing some small inaccuracies. So like castle kingside would be better, because you're going to be faster on the queen side, no doubt about it. You're going to be 100 times faster on the queen side than him. So you're castling this way. So let's say he wanted to attack you now. So bishop f1, which gets in the way of everything. So let's say rook here, bishop d3, g4, and now h5. Here, he can play h5, but you know, what happens if I can actually take here? So I don't know, let's say h5. So then g4. Yes, he's making contact before you, but if he captures like this, he still has to play here just to try to attack you. So here, capture. What's he going to do? Capture this way? I don't know. I don't think he can. So even then, you still have this rook here. So if you capture this way, then this here is almost mate. It might be mate now. Yeah, see, it's mate now. So I mean, you're way faster than he is. I mean, from this point here, you could probably flip on this computer and you're like literally winning right now. So maybe not winning as much as you were the other way, but you know, having a pawn advantage about is actually pretty good. So if you capture this way and this way, and you try to block it up a little bit, okay, fine, whatever. I mean, you still have these tactics where you can play knight h5 like the computer says. So let's see here. So he played here. What does this guy say here? He says knight h5 now, which is actually kind of interesting, because I didn't consider knight h5 until you played it. And knight h5 is actually pretty cool. But if you look at this analysis here, it says knight a5, and then it says queen c2, and it says castle. So basically the same thing that I said it wants you to do. It's got a little bit of tactics there that you don't even have to really consider as a 1400 player, but just the simple fact that it kind of agrees with me that this is a huge inaccuracy. If I was to go back one, it probably has him at an advantage, and it wants him to play e4. So really the only compensation that he has is the fact that it's not easy to rip open the center. Okay, he needs to like prepare a little bit to open the center more. So If he can open the center, then he would have a huge advantage. But just the fact that he's playing moves like this and like this, there's really no reason that he's got any kind of, let's do this. Yeah, so look at this point here, right? Almost every move, the point is in favor of having like somewhere around a pawn's advantage, and almost every move is the same. So like h4, that's probably h4 is probably the worst move in this in the three that I'm going to suggest. But you got castle queenside, which is probably really good, and then e4. I would probably consider castle queenside first, and then e4. And then seeing where you decide to castle, because more than likely you're going to castle queenside. But if you notice, castle queenside first, they're suggesting queen to d7, and then they're suggesting h5, which that's a huge difference between what white played and what the computer's suggesting. It's suggesting h5 now, and if the queen goes to d7, you actually do have an opportunity to play bishop h3 to close it off, because that would give a little bit of a tempo. And then you can play things like rook d to e1, for example, and you have way more control over these two files. So yeah, at this point, castling queenside, going for things like playing e4 or h5 is better than what he played. And then as you go along, the evaluation drops heavily as soon as the bishop h3 is on there and the a3 is on there, and it drops heavily after bishop h3 because there's no plan, and then after a3 it literally drops to your favor now, which I completely agree with, because at this point you should start attacking the queen side, because he gave you what people call this is they usually call it a hook. So like you're literally fishing out there, and you got yourself a hook and you're gonna reel him in. Okay. So we could turn this engine off. I hate engine analysis. The only reason that I turn it on is for tactical justification, to see if there's a tactic I'm missing, or I'm just reinstating the evaluation. And if you notice, when I do these evals, when I flip it on, I'm just checking the actual eval and maybe looking at the moves just a little bit, and I'm not exploring anything. Okay? Yeah, the computer basically agrees with what I said, but I don't have to explore anything unless I've already explored it with other humans. So everything else, you didn't do anything wrong except you took here. And then of course, you know, you're down on time. He's got like 7 minutes versus your 0 minutes. So he's just moving faster than you, which that's a difficult skill to master. I don't usually get into time pressure, and I can manage my time better than most people, but it's actually a very difficult skill to get down. But from this point, when he played bishop to g2, you should have taken here, okay? Because that's with check, which forces him to capture here, and then you can pull back and you're full exchange up. And no matter what, from that point, if you're under a minute and you still lose on time, you know for a fact that you're better, okay? And that's really all that matters. All right, so here, 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 and then you lose on time, but technically you could consider yourself better. So like let's say capture F5, and then you actually might have a winning position here on the grounds that I think you're a pawn up. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're a pawn up. You don't have bishop of opposite color, and if you play F5 here, if you notice, all of the pawns are on dark squares, and all of yours are going to light squares. This equals a winning position for black, okay? I don't really care what anybody says. More than likely, this is simply a winning position for black, okay? Because black can't get away from these pawns advancing here. There's just no way. Once the F5 move is here, there's really no getting away from you know, black playing things like bishop f6, a4, a5, and then as long as the king can get into the position somewhere, black has a winning position. So what would probably end up happening is this king, all he has to do is after bishop f6, h4, h5, the king just has to maneuver his way over to here, over to here, like this, and then he can maneuver the bishop either this way and attack this pawn, or move the bishop this way and attack a pawn this way. Okay? And that's probably the end of it. Right now, I would say the computer should say that you're, yeah. I would say that it's closer to actual winning rather than that you have an advantage of like a knight, which is enough to win. But the computer is kind of going in the range that it's saying that you're winning, yes, but it's more of a knight's advantage, which is fine. It's fine. And I considered this move right here, but I don't think that there's enough, right? So like if bishop h4, then king to c8, the only way to maintain this position is to play like this, and then you have to go back. Otherwise, if the king goes here and you're here, if you go this way, you're losing the opposition of the bishops, and the bishop can go to f6, and then bishop here and here. And then once the bishop on your side gets behind the enemy pawns, more than likely you're the one that's going to take all the pawns because there's not enough time. So bishop h5, king to c8, the king has to move, so maybe a5, but let's say the king goes here, king here, king here. I actually don't really care for bishop c8. I'd rather go here. If the bishop goes here, you can play here, and then the bishop still has to maintain equilibrium here. Okay? So if you go here and the bishop goes here, you're going to go this way. Okay? Well, technically I guess there's better. Oh, he can lose the piece because of b6 here and then here, and he loses the piece. Okay, so that's a blunder. He actually has to stay this way. So if he goes here, I suppose it would be okay. But the bishop can go here and here. It's suggesting a5, probably a4, b3. Yeah, I'm convinced that this, when you're in this position here, and the bishop goes to h5, you're just winning here. It might be able to calculate that it's this evaluation, but in the end, the further you go down the evaluation hole, you're going to find out that it's actually probably a lot stronger and a lot easier. So that's the end of that. And I think I can end this video here. And I feel like I've done a lot better on this analysis than the other one. By the way, the looks of this is my live stream setup, but I like the purple, so I kept it. I probably explained that in the last video, but that's how that stands. So I'm going to stop this and upload it, and I hope you got something out of the analysis. When it came down to it, you played better than your opponent, and it really is just a matter of getting faster, managing your time a little bit better. You don't have to be 100% perfect on tactics, so maybe spending less time, maybe a little less time on the tactics might help you out a little bit, or practicing getting faster at the tactics, okay? Because to be quite honest, it didn't really matter what you played when it came down to it. He was still losing a piece either way. The knight takes d2 is probably tactically easier than what I was going to suggest. But it really doesn't matter which one you play. As long as you're safe about doing it, it doesn't really matter. And the thing is you don't have to be perfect in tactics when it comes to rapid play. Okay? I'm not perfect, as you can tell, and I'm like 2200 on Lee Chess. So you consider that when you're looking at games where you have 10-minute time controls. Plus, if you want to get better, maybe you can stop playing the 10-minute time controls strictly and go to like a 10-minute time controls where there's a 5-second increment, and every time that you move you add 5 seconds. That way when you get low on time, you can start moving faster when you're in a winning position and start gaining more time. And that's actually a strategy that people use when they're trying to learn how to play from quicker time controls. So I'm going to end it here, and I hope you enjoyed it. And let me know. I'll upload this as soon as possible. Thank you.